Hi, I'm Mark with Macroscopic Solutions, and today I want to show everyone how to add scale bars whenever you're doing high-end microscopy, scientific imaging, or even just macro or micro photography using a DSLR camera. In our case, of course, we're using the Macropod Pro 3D. So to give you some background on why I'm creating this video, I've been working and collaborating for about a year now with different institutions on this project called Big B. You can learn more about this by navigating to big-b.net. But what we're trying to do is digitize museums' collections, specifically the B collections. And there's also added initiatives in here to do photogrammetry on many of these specimens and at least push the needle forward in terms of what's possible for 3D modeling those types of specimens. So these are some of the people that are involved on this project and some information about the research. So just in case you're curious about it, I wanted to draw everybody's attention here. Okay, so the first thing I want to do and make aware for everyone is that we are using the Macropod Pro 3D by Macroscopic Solutions in order to photograph scientific specimens. Either we're using a 100mm lens where the focal plane or the focal distance can be set at different lengths, or we are using the MPE 65mm where we know an optical range between 1x to 5x, or we are using the micro kit, which is a fixed objective. So whenever you are creating your own scale bar, it's very important to remember that we are focus stacking all of our images. So whenever you photograph a scale bar, you need to focus stack the image to get, or at least reduce, the margin of error. Because if you just take a picture of that scale bar, it's not going to be cropped the same way as the final output image would be if you are focus stacking. So it's much more important to focus stack the ruler that you're using to create your scale bar at a fixed focal length or at a fixed magnification, and then stack those images of the ruler and then build a scale bar off of that. So to give you an example, what I have here, what I'm going to be using today, is a 5x Ted Pello ruler. So we have these available on our website in the accessories section. But this is a little micro ruler by Ted Pello. Here it is here. And it's set up so that every single line on it is 100 microns across. The entire length of the ruler, as you can see here, is 5mm. So this is a ruler that you could actually break it off of the brass handle and include it in the frame of view whenever you take an image of a specimen, just so you have a sense of scale. But because it's aluminum, it's not very clear. So what I like to do is use it to standardize all of my scale bars. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open a folder in my Active 2D, which is where I have these templates of scale bars. And what we're going to be working with today is just, we'll use the 10x as an example. So this is a 10x image of, so it's basically using the 10x objective by Mitutoyo paired with a 70 to 200mm lens of the length of this scale bar. And you can see every single, so here to this point is roughly a 0.5mm with a very small margin of error. It is quite accurate, but you can see basically the sense of scale that we're getting in this image. It's not cropped and it is focus stacked. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this image in Photoshop here. And what you'll have to do in order to make your images measurable is do this for every single focal length or every single magnification. So as you can see here, I have the MP65 at 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x, and I have all of these images here, so I can drag them in one by one in order to set up the creation of my scale bars. Now, the easiest way to create a scale bar is to just create a PSD overlay. So I'm going to hit enter to set the image. And then what you can do is navigate down here to shapes and the line tool. And you just want to drag and drop. So, and keep in mind, the longer you drag and drop, the more accurate it's going to be. I mean, so if you're going from here to here, you know you're about a 0.5mm. I mean, again, it's an incredibly small margin of error, but you're going to be more precise if you drag it a little bit further to cover a greater length of about 1mm. So this is 1mm, and we know that length. So I'm going to place a line there. We want to change the stroke so it's a little bit wider. Looks like we could actually do that up here. And we want to make sure we pick a nice color, so we'll do a black line here. You can make it solid, you can make it hashed. Of course, solid is going to be more accurate. And then what you'll want to do is just add a text box so that you can write, okay, this length is 1 millimeter. So this is just loading. What I'll do is open up this text box now, and we'll type in 1 millimeter, and we're just going to make our font a bit larger. So we'll do 200. And again, to be consistent, we're going to just change the color to black. The other thing I like to do when I create like an overlay like this is invert the colors. So right now I have a black scale bar, and that's useful for neutral gray backgrounds, white backgrounds, but it's not useful, of course, if you have a black background. So now what I have here is I have these layers. I have my text layers, and I have my line. So what I'm going to do is just merge those layers, and I can toggle on and off my background. So now I'm just left with a scale bar. So what I like to do here is just delete the background. Now I have a scale bar that I can move that's within 1 millimeter of the dimensions of the camera that I use to shoot with. And as long as you're using the same optics, so 1x, on the MPE65, for example, is the same field of view that you're going to get on any full frame sensor as long as you're using full frame. The difference is if you go back to a crop sensor, you might have to recreate the scale bar. What I like to do then from here is File, and then I will Save As, and I want to save it as a .psd file. And because we're working off the 10x objective, I'll create a 10x folder, knowing that I use the 10x objective, and I'll create a PSD. So I have this called 10x PSD. And then what I like to do is just hit Command I. Well, first I need to highlight this. I'll hit Command I. What that'll do is it'll invert the colors. So instead of black, now we have a white scale bar, which is really useful for those black backgrounds. And then I'll go to File and Save As, and I'll save one that's called inverted to give me a sense of or at least, you know, to have a white scale bar and then a black scale bar. Okay, so I'm just going to re-invert this and bring it back. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to open up an image here. This image was taken with the 10x objective. It was taken at an old Entomological Society of America meeting. You can see here that it's a 10x magnification. I had it recorded. And what we're going to do is just make sure it's the exact same camera. You can see the dimensions of the image are exactly the same. And I have my scale bar here, which is in the background. So you can always add the scale bar by dragging and dropping and just sort of matching it to the outer points, just like I did here, and you have a good scale bar. Or there's actually another way, which I'd also like to just sort of detail now. And you could do this for every objective. So here, what we're going to do is image and analysis, and we're going to set a measurement scale. You can see I actually already have one set here. It's 6D Mark II 10X. I didn't actually know I had that. But basically what it's saying is that for every 1,692 pixels, that's 1 millimeter. And I'll show you how. So somewhere over here, let me just sort of drag and drop until I find the ruler tool. The ruler is sometimes hidden under one of these. So you just sort of drag and drop until you find it. Sorry, I can't. But every time Photoshop changes, they change the back to the same size. They change where their toolbox is. Here we go. So you want the eyedropper tool, drag it to the right, and select your ruler tool. Now this is your ruler tool. Right now, all it can do is tell me how many pixels there are across the entire image. So this L1 here, that's length. So what I'm going to do is just drag from the left side of this scale bar to the right side of this scale bar. That's going to tell me how many pixels there are. So in this particular image, there's 1,496.59. You could round up if you wanted to. And again, if you wanted to be even more accurate, you could actually enlarge the image here, just so that it fills the field of view. And what we'll do is we'll take the ruler tool again, we'll drag it across, and we'll see how accurate it is from end to end. It looks like it's now 1500 pixels. So we can use 1500 as a good proxy. So now to create that scale bar, you want to go to Analysis, Set Measurement Scale, and we want to create a custom scale bar. Okay, so I know that I used a 6D Mark II and I used the 10x Mitutoyo objective. So I'm going to just click that, but what you'll do when you create this is you'll hit custom and you're going to enter a new lens. So in that case, I'll just do that now. So now I have custom. It doesn't tell me what the preset is, and I know from my measurement that it's 1500 pixels. The logical length that I'm telling it is, so let's just say that we are much smaller. Let's say that rather than millimeters, I wanted this in microns. I could then say that there's 100 microns, and that will be my text box. So where this says 1 millimeter, instead it'll say 100 microns per every 1500 pixels. But we don't want it in microns, we want it in millimeters. So we're going to say every 1500 pixels, there's 1 millimeter. Okay, and then you want to save the preset, and then you have a preset name. So this will be new 10x objective. Then we'll do the let's see, so 10x objective, and this again was the 6D Mark II. And you could do this for every focal distance you have on a particular lens, every objective, or every magnification that you use on a fixed lens like an MPE 65 or something. Now, I do realize that there's a slight discrepancy. It's possible because this image that I'm using in the background is an image that I've already edited and cleaned up, that I've adjusted or cropped it in some way, which is why 1600 pixels doesn't equate to the 1500. So again, you want to use an unaltered focus stacked image in order to create this scale bar, but for demonstrative purposes, it really makes no difference. All I'm doing is basically telling you how to create a scale bar that is the distance of this line using a different method in Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to press OK. Now that my preset scale bar has been made, now I want to show you how in Photoshop you can add a scale bar if you know the camera that you used and the magnification that you used without ever having to drag and drop a PSD overlay file. So the next thing you'll want to do is image analysis, and you'll want to set your measurement scale. Now we know that I already had this when it was existing. I just created this new 10x where 1500 pixels equals 1 millimeter. So what I'm going to do is just click on that, and then we'll go to set measurement scale. So I've already checked that. That's the one that's going to be placed once I place the scale marker. And then we're going to do place scale marker. And then I can tell this the size that I want. So let's just say we want font size 60. I can say I want it at the top. I want the text color to be black. And I want the length to be 1 millimeter. So if I wanted this to be a 2 millimeter scale bar, I can enter 2. But in this case, we have 1 millimeter. So I'm going to press OK. And now we have a scale bar file that's been added. Oop, I'm moving just the text box here. So I'll select all of these. And now you can see I have a scale bar that matches identically to what the other scale bar PSD overlay was created. But now I don't need to drag and drop. Now I just have a scale bar file that I can create every time just by simply going to image analysis, checking which scale bar I need, and then I'll place the scale marker. And that's that. So that's how you can create a scale bar in Photoshop without ever having to create a PSD overlay file. The other reason why this is kind of nice too is, let's say you just wanted some really basic measurements of the specimen itself. The next thing you can do is then go back to the ruler tool, and now every time you drag and drop, so this is a point mounted specimen, what we can do is just sort of take the antennae here, let's say it was significant, or even each one of these parts on the antenna, I could drag a line, and that length right there, 0.78, is my distance now set up in millimeters. So no longer is this in pixels, it's now telling me that this length here is 0.78 millimeters long. So that's I think that's it in a nutshell, how you would make this image measurable. And what's really nice too is if you do add scale bars, let's say you wanted to do some 3D photogrammetry, you could essentially add a scale bar in scripts or batch process 100 different images that are going to be used in photogrammetry and have a fixed scale bar that you can have floating next to your model if you wanted to, if you were to add this. That way photogrammetry will pick up this every time. Or you can use it from one of those images just to make your model measurable in Agisoft Metashape. And in case you're wondering, I do have a fossil tooth video on how to make 3D models measurable, so refer to that one if you're looking for it. I'll make sure it pops up at the end of watching this video. So again, thank you for watching this video. I hope it was helpful, and thank you for choosing Macroscopic Solutions. I'm Mark Smith, and until next time.